be getting into a wonderful panel. I'm really excited to have three wonderful guests joining us, so I'll give a shout out to them in just a moment. I also want to mention we have a number of staff on the call today too, both supporting from our tech side as well as we have individuals monitoring the chat. So if you have questions throughout, whether it's for our panelists or if you have questions related to recruitment and admissions for our PMBA or other programs, you're welcome to do so. We have some great people on the call joining us today. Let me give you a brief introduction into our alumni panelists to give you a bit of a preview of what they're going to be sharing from their stories. And then I'm going to go through a few key pieces around what you can expect from our PMBA program. So let me just kind of jump into some introductions here. So you'll be hearing later from Flora Yang. Flora Yang is a business consultant, podcaster, and published author of two books. She's worked at McDonald's China headquarters, Wyden and Kennedy Shanghai, and multiple startups in China and Canada, covering various stages from seed rounds to Series C funding. Her expertise lies in strategic planning and execution, communication, business development, and marketing, and her experience enables building multiple systems from the ground up to enable fast scale-up, driving aggressive growth plans and establishing new brands and business in new markets. She's collaborated with numerous global venture capital firms, private equity companies, and investment banks, and additionally, she's been actively involved at the board level in multiple organizations, organizing and attending numerous board meetings and contributing to discussions. She's conducted due diligence on over 20 early stage startups, researching business plans, product offerings, potential markets, and evaluating the competitive landscape and providing investment recommendations to venture partners. I would like to welcome Flora to the call. I would also like to welcome David. So David has vast experience in the telecom space, specializing in taking products from 0 to 1, product management and development, business strategy, and go-to-market. Currently at TELUS, he's a senior product manager leading the fixed wireless access portfolio, which focuses on managing the product strategy and lifecycle. In his previous role at TELUS, he led the product development of one of TELUS's flagship products, Secure Business, which enabled business owners to monitor and protect their business 24/7. David has completed his MBA at UBC Sauder in 2021, as did Flora, as did Matthew, and he also holds a BA major in technology, marketing, and PMP certification. And lastly, I'd like to introduce Matthew Brock. Matthew had many roles working at BOSA Properties, with roles in the development, corporate strategy, and acquisitions department. As the director of acquisitions, Matthew is responsible for sourcing, underwriting, and negotiating acquisitions and dispositions across all asset classes to support BOSA Properties' growth and future development pipeline. He brings an in-depth understanding of investment analysis, capital allocation, and risk assessment. In addition to his MBA from UBC Sauder, Matthew also holds a Bachelor of Engineering in Civil Engineering from Concordia University. So a big warm welcome to Matthew, David, and Flora. So while you ponder what exciting questions you're going to be asking our panelists, we have some prepared as well. Let me go through a brief agenda for what the flow of today will be. So first, I'll be going over an overview of our professional MBA program. We'll be heading into our panel discussion, as I mentioned, and then I'll provide a few reminders about our application requirements, as well as our first round deadline, which is coming up on April 16th, with our early application scholarship that I'd like to highlight for you. And finally, if you have any final Q&A, we'll be happy to answer it at that time. As I mentioned throughout, if you have any questions, please go ahead and pop them into the chat, and we'll be sure to try our best to answer them. So a brief introduction to some of our programs at UBC Sauder. I really do want to highlight, and the focus of today is talking about our professional MBA, which is a part-time program, which, as we note, is ideal for working professionals. Sometimes folks are also wondering about whether they should be considering a full-time MBA or the PMBA, so we'd be happy to chat about that. But as you can see, we have a whole suite of different programs as well that we offer through the Robert H. Lee Graduate School at UBC Sauder. A few things I want to highlight in terms of UBC Sauder, and I'm sure our alumni panelists will be happy to share some of these things too, but some of the key features I think really make UBC Sauder, and specifically our professional MBA program, stand out. are listed here. So the vision for UBC Sauder is to build a more just, sustainable, and prosperous world through innovation and responsible leadership. And our program is tailored for professionals seeking an MBA without sacrificing that career momentum. The curriculum not only focuses on core business principles, which you'll see in a moment, but it also integrates responsible leadership and sustainability throughout the program. And combining this academic rigor with the forward-thinking approach, we empower our students to be able to excel in their careers. So you can see we're really proud of our rankings. I think it goes to show a lot of hard work behind the scenes in terms of the investment that goes into creating a really high-quality educational experience for our students. I also want to highlight experiential learning as part of it, and I'd be curious to hear if our alumni want to speak to this later too. But through professional residencies, through global learning opportunities, through kind of the hands-on kind of career support that is provided too, there's a lot of great opportunity to really practice through experience. And just a few pieces here, just briefly, to talk about the program journey. So sometimes folks can be a bit overwhelmed by this slide, so not to worry. But to give you a bit of a sense of what to expect, so you can have some framework to place the alumni stories on. The entire program itself takes 24 months to complete. And our program manager supports our students throughout the journey to kind of help you navigate these pieces too. You'll see from the slide here, the darker blue parts are professional residencies. So these are 3 8-day professional residencies throughout the program. They're full-day study taught by a cross-disciplinary team, and they span multiple topics to help with that experiential educational learning. So you enter the program in the first year with that first residency, which focuses on leadership and competitive strategy. It's an opportunity to connect with your cohort and foster relationships with faculty and start your career development programming. And then you move into taking foundation courses such as accounting, operations, marketing, etc. Moving into the second column, the year 2, is when you start with another residency that focuses on business development and negotiations. And then you start to dive into specialized courses to give tools and real-world skills. On top of that, there's a bit more flexibility where you can embrace things like global opportunities, which is very unique. And you could take courses from our GNAM partner schools or even potentially study abroad in the summer. I'll talk a little bit more about what does GNAM mean in a moment. And you can see the final piece of it is our third residency that focuses on ethics, sustainability, and managing change. So in terms of how the program works, you can see that allowing you to focus on your studies, there's 2 courses taught over 6-week periods, with each class, or with classes happening every 2 to 3 weekends. So you can kind of see the breakdown here. Again, we can hear from our alumni to hear how they flowed through this kind of course schedule. And so ensuring ease of access is important to us as well. So exams are administered online, is what you can see here in the week 8. So just briefly, a few more things. I mentioned global experiences, which I'll kind of jump into our Global Network for Advanced Management, which is a really wonderful opportunity that we're in a partnership with leading business schools from around the world. And so by being the only Canadian partner in the Global Network for Advanced Management, you could have the opportunity to take courses with these partner schools through Global Network Weeks, through different courses. Some of them are offered online, as you can see here, which is a really wonderful add-on experience as well. And lastly, career coaching is a key part of doing an MBA. And so I just want to kind of note here that we have really wonderful personalized career coaching through our Harry B. Varshney Business Career Center. So this is one-on-one career coaching and professional skills training and lots of wonderful networking opportunities as well. It continues to kind of be supportive throughout that 24 months and beyond through your network as well. So I will just end here. I'm really excited to get to our panel after this slide. So this is a bit of a class profile. You may be wondering, who might I be alongside if I were to join the PMBA program? And this is a nice snapshot of some of the kind of class profile statistics from our class of 2026. So just a few nuggets of information there that could help you. So moving along, I will excitedly pass it over to our alumni panelists to introduce themselves. So I'd like to get started by just asking, maybe in the order we have here, we'll start with Flora, then go to David and Matthew. If you could please introduce yourself by name, tell us what have you studied before, remind us, and if you could talk about what you were doing before you joined the PMBA program and what are you doing now. So over to you, Flora. Looking forward to hearing from you.
Thank you, Nicole, for the kind introduction. Hi, everyone on the call. My name is Flora Yang. I finished my undergrads in University of Communication University of China in Beijing. So back then, my major was in communication and journalism. Prior to the PMBA, my career, like my professional experience, were mostly PR and marketing, business development. And then back then I was working at a VC here in Vancouver, Canada. And then that's when I joined the PMBA. It helped a lot, like the PMBA helped a lot on my career development because VC for me is a big transition of career. And then the program definitely assisted the transition even better. And then right now, I'm working as a business consultant focused on operations, growth strategy, and organizational development. On the side, I have my own podcast, publishing weekly, and then I'm a published author. And then I sit on the board of a charity organization here in Vancouver that is Care BC, focused on seniors. Yeah, that is a very brief introduction about myself.
And we'll get deeper into your story as well. David, if you'd like to go next.
For sure, yes. Hi, everyone. Super excited to be here. I'm David. My major was, my BA was in technology marketing, where I studied chemistry and physics and biotechnology, and how to market in those industries. Before I joined the MBA, I was doing product marketing for TELUS, leading their retail program across the country. I had fantastic time during my MBA, whether it's because of the great support the admin and the educational teams in Sauder provided, and the tools I received to continue developing my career. Currently, I'm a senior product manager at TELUS, leading their fixed wireless access portfolio, which is a wireless internet across Western Canada.
Thank you so much, David. Good to hear from you too, and kind of get into that surface level of why and what kind of shaped your journey. So Matthew, would you like to go next?
Yep, thanks Nicole for the introduction. Hello everyone, my name is Matthew Brock and I work in the acquisitions department at Boza Properties, which is a real estate development company. My undergrad is in civil engineering. Actually did that at Concordia. I'm from Montreal originally and moved to Vancouver about 8 years ago. Never really worked in engineering after graduation. I actually been at Boza for my whole career and started on our development team, which is more responsible for design and approvals of high-rise residential, condo, and rental buildings. Then I transitioned into our corporate strategy team, which is a bit of a mix of strategy and operations. And now I'm currently on our acquisitions team, responsible for buying new land, buildings, and dispositions as well, and capital allocation.
Thank you. We've got a nice array of industries represented here, which I really appreciate. And maybe we can start with David for the next question and move to Matthew and then end with Flora. So you've kind of talked about what you were doing before and what you're doing now, but maybe if you could tell us what inspired you to pursue an MBA at UBC Sauder, what kind of shaped your decision making, and what kind of led you to decide why now for you as well. So David, if you could start for us.
Awesome question. So after almost 2 years in the product marketing space at TELUS, I started to think what I want to achieve next and where do I want to take my career. And after doing my research, and I kind of put my eyes on joining the product management function within TELUS. And when I looked at the tasks that product managers are working on and what really good product managers are doing. I noticed the one thing that differentiates good from average product manager is really the ability to work with cross-functional teams and lead without authority a diverse group of people. And the MBA gave me that tool to work with folks from different industries with a variety of backgrounds and education, working on business case together, solving problems, even connecting on a more kind of a basic level, just for class and study for exams. And I feel that's kind of the biggest advantage of the MBA. And 6 months after I joined the program, I took a role in product management for security products.
Thank you so much, David. Matthew, what about you? What kind of inspired you to kind of step into an MBA at that point in your career?
Yeah, it's a great question. I did the MBA at a relatively young age. I think I started when I was 24, 25, so outside of the range that was on the previous slide you showed, Nicole. And it was interesting for me because I kind of always wanted to do business, even though I studied engineering. I studied math and CEGEP in Montreal and studied engineering at Concordia. But there were multiple times where I almost transferred out into business. And when I started my career at Boza, I had the engineering background, but I kind of wanted to get into an industry where you kind of mix engineering and business, which is how I ended up in development. And after being in development for a couple of years, I kind of realized I was missing some of the skills that would get me to the next level in terms of my personal and professional growth. Never had taken any finance classes before, accounting classes, marketing, strategy, operations. So it felt like I needed another source of education to round out my skills. And that was really what inspired me to do the MBA. And even though it was at a younger age than normal, I feel like it was the perfect opportune time for me and kind of propelled my career to where it's at today.
So much, great to hear, and interesting to hear kind of the differences and variations in David talking about cross-functional teams, and Matthew, you noticing that gap that like you would love to have that knowledge to be able to take it to the next level. So really nice to hear. What about you, Flora?
Yeah, on the contrary to Matthew, I joined the MBA program when I was 36. So it's kind of like in a later stage of my career. But the reason I want to pursue a PMBA degree in Sauder is first, I definitely want to pursue a degree. I'm a firm believer of like lifetime learning. So I do want to pursue a degree. And then secondly, I don't want to give up my my career, my daytime job, because it was a startup that my VC firm backed, and then by that time the startup is doing really well. We're on the C round, and then we are having multiple investors from all over the world, and then that was a great opportunity. And then but in the meantime, I do think I want to learn better about the language in the business world after I joined the VC. I think only an MBA program can provide that. PMBA fits the criteria of not giving up on my daytime job. And then also Sauder is the best business school in Canada. It's definitely worth pursuing. And that's how I laser focused to this one opportunity. And then I applied, and I talked to multiple admission advisor back then. And then I finally decided to apply, and then I was admitted successfully. So it was a great journey.
Thank you so much, and really interesting to hear you touch on that piece, Flora, that I think tends to be quite an important part of folks joining a program like the PMBA, which is part-time, where they want that kind of continuation of their career and they don't want to kind of hit pause. And others can and others do when they take a full-time program, but it can be certainly important for some folks when we're on that career trajectory. So wonderful. So we'll start with Matthew this time. So my next question is wondering about your experience during the program. So getting more into it, I'm sure having displayed the previous slide that kind of shows all the different pieces, what's kind of your commentary on it? How was your experience? Maybe you could speak to kind of the workload and kind of picking up study. I don't know, it sounds like you kind of didn't have too much of a pause between your previous degree and the PMBA, but would be very curious to hear just overall reflections on your experience, and we'll go to Flora after that.
Yeah, it was yeah, you kind of mentioned it already, but it wasn't too different for me than, I'd been studying relatively recently, so I didn't find picking studying back up that hard. I actually enjoyed it quite a bit. I kind of missed having to study for some things in a weird way. The workload was difficult to a certain degree at different times. I think there's a bit of an adjustment period at first where, you're kind of getting used to the workload, figuring out what you have to sacrifice to make things work, whether it's for assignments during the week or group work or class work. But overall, I found it, pretty manageable after the first semester when you kind of figure out, just get into the flow of things a little more. Overall, I thought it was very manageable. The parts that were a little tougher from just a work life balance, or a work study balance, maybe, were more on the professional residencies, because there's not really, you kind of have to do whatever's going on at your regular job while doing that full time. So I found that a little challenging, but it's once a quarter, so it wasn't too hard to figure that out.
So much, Matthew. What about yourself, Flora?
Yeah, so I do, like, I always have been taking some sort of a class. Like I said, I was always like learning something, and I love the feeling of sitting in the classroom. So I've been taking like a business writing class from UBC, or like French, and all kinds of class. So I didn't particularly find studying or picking up studying is difficult. Having said that, it's definitely challenging from time to time, because you have your work going on, and then I had a little bit of traveling going on as well. And then I think it's been a tough but rewarding process. And then also, I want to point out that because of the cohort in the PMBA are all working professionals, actually everyone is very high efficient, so that we kind of like, let's get in and then work and then get out. And then it kind of like propelled the style of being very effective and efficient. Yeah, and then another thing I want to point out is that our second year was actually when the pandemic broke out. So during that time, we're the first class took online courses for the first time, and then it was all online. But that actually was a very memorable experience, but I don't think anyone else would go through that again. Yeah, but yeah, that was a very different experience.
That definitely would have shaped how you kind of would have navigated the curriculum and taking courses. So thank you for noting that, Flora, and certainly a challenging time for many of us, and good to know that was influenced the way you experienced the program. David, what about yourself? Maybe some observations or reflections on your experience of the program?
Yeah, I think it's very similar to kind of what Flora and Matthew said. It's definitely manageable. Once you pass that kind of first 3 months, then you pretty much get the hang of it, and just your schedule to the rhythm and the required assignments. I can say that we had in our program we had folks that running their own business or had kids or whatnot. So kind of from all walks of life with a super busy schedule, yet everyone was able to complete their assignments and tasks. And at some point during classes, you kind of figure out exactly where you can contribute most value, and where you can kind of take a step back and make things easier for yourself. So I think that was the biggest advantage. We all supported each other throughout those times. And if I thought, for example, that one of my classmates is very strong on like financial stuff, then he took responsibility on that part in the business case, while I looked into more the strategy or the marketing or whatnot. So all to say, it's manageable, and I wouldn't worry too much about the workload.
Good to know, yeah. And I think to the point that Flora was raising too, that everyone's kind of in the same boat, and so kind of being very conscious of that with each other, it sounds like is a big part of the experience as well. We're starting to get some questions flowing in from the audience, so I'm going to kind of intersperse them in ways that might make sense in terms of the flow. So there was a specific question about what % of assignments are group projects, and how was it to manage that with other full-time professionals? Any difficulties there? So yeah, if any, maybe we'll just open this up to the floor if anyone of the three of you would like to comment on kind of the group project nature of the assignments.
I don't have the percentage off my head.
Yeah.
I don't find it very difficult. So how it works, I can give you an example. So how it works for the group projects is that if once this assignment is assigned, and if it's a project, a group project, we will usually stay behind after the weekend whole day class, and then we will just work there for another hour or an hour and a half. And then, like I said, everybody was like very cautious about everybody's time, and then the situation, because everybody could have family and life going on. So we will work on site, and then separate the tasks, and then go back, and then like working mostly by each other, and then by ourselves, and then went back the like it's mostly depend on your group dynamic, but I didn't remember any big challenge. I do remember once one of our colleagues who wasn't able to present at one group discussion, but because he was out of the country. But that's pretty much it. I'm not sure how I answered the question.
Thank you, Flora. That's good to know. And even it's okay if you don't have the exact percentage, but to know that there was group assignments and that it was able to be navigated. David or Matthew, no pressure, but if you want to comment on any piece of that, feel free.
Yeah, I'd just say, like, I don't know the percent again off head, but I'd say there's probably like one group assignment for every other class. Like not every class off the top of my head had a group assignment, but pretty much every other one did. And it was, like kind of Flora mentioned, relatively easy to manage. I think, sometimes when you're taking multiple classes and they each have a group assignment, you kind of just need to think of them together, and what your role is going to be in them individually, because you kind of sometimes you have to take a step back and let someone else lead one project so you could lead another, or vice versa. So just figuring out what that combined kind of workload looks like if you have multiple ongoing group projects together, but didn't happen too frequently.
Sounds like you all were taking it in stride too. And I see Inder has his hand up. I'm going to get to you in just a moment because I have a somewhat related question in the chat as well. There's a question as well around whether every course has a final exam. So my impression is that there's an exam after kind of those two alternating days, but would love to hear from any of you on the panel if you could speak to kind of the course. I would imagine each course is a little bit different in terms of breakdown of projects and exams and everything, but does every course have a final exam is one of the questions, and then we'll get to Inder's question with his hands up.
I can jump. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'll jump in right here. So yes, for the first year, I think most of the first year courses have the final exam online. And then I think for the percentage of grading, I think for us, attendance is definitely very important. If I remember correctly, we're not supposed to really take any time off from the class. So you basically need to show up in each and every class. Yeah, David, go ahead.
No, I don't think I have anything kind of new to add to what you just said. Not every class has an exam. Most of them, from what I remember, have an exam. Yeah.
Yeah, and I know there was a bit more curiosity around the breakdown, but I think every course and the syllabus would be received by the
Yeah.
students at the beginning of the course, so that would be detailed for them, so you have kind of full awareness going in. So Inder, I'm curious if you'd like to unmute yourself and ask your question, please go right ahead.
Definitely. Thank you so much for your elaboration of the presentation. So my question is, I'm currently doing a business degree, but obviously I do want to pursue an MBA or a PMBA at UBC. So my question is, I did a broad business degree and I want to do a career track MBA in finance. So having that transition of not coming from, I do currently work at a bank as a bank teller, but my true question is within 2-3 years from now, when I do want to apply for the PMBA and career track in MBA, how difficult will the transition be, or is there any suggestions, or will I be prepared after I clear the GMAT and get into the program?
Maybe I can kind of jump in just to make sure I fully understand the question. So you're looking to move into a full-time, to a part-time MBA with a career track in finance?
That is right, but I only did a general business degree.
Yeah, I don't know if you're maybe
David,
Nicole
with a quick
answer, but
Oh, yeah, go ahead. I was just going to jump in, David, to just explain for Inder. So, for our full-time MBA program, we have career tracks. You might have seen kind of the different pieces of finance and climate. But for our PMBA program, there isn't the career track. So maybe, and David can maybe elaborate on the experience in the PMBA, but I just want to make that differentiation. So our full-time program has career tracks, whereas our professional MBA program does not. And go ahead, David.
think it's exactly, I think for clarification. So I can actually, the part-time MBA, the professional MBA is the financial courses. I took most of them, I believe. Um, it was just, kind of the basic of finance, and you're learning the ropes on what exactly finance is. Read financial statement analysis was actually a tremendous course that helped me a lot and, advance my career, because I really got a hands-on on how to read statements and what to focus on. It was also good not just for your professional career, but I think also to your, day-to-day management of your own kind of personal finance. I'm currently a board member in Canadian Pride History Society, and study financial statements really helped me to kind of fulfill this role of a board member. So all in all, I think it's the courses you study at the professional MBA are at the level that is giving you a taste of what it is. But again, if you want to go deeper, then I guess there are some other programs as well.
Okay, fair enough.
Thank you so much. And Perry, I see you have your hand up. I'm just going to jump into a few other questions that are a bit related, and we'll jump back into a verbal question here. So there was another question coming in from the chat in terms of time commitment, and I understand with the PMBA program, balancing it all is a big question. So for our panelists, how many hours per week would you say on average you were dedicating outside of the attending of classes dedicated to studying and assignments? And also if you have any other broader commentary on how you balanced it all. I know you've kind of alluded to that, but if you could talk about like if you had family obligations or other work pieces, what were your kind of tips and tricks to navigate the balance piece? And maybe we could go to Matthew and then Parrot and then Flora. Sorry, please go ahead.
Yep, no, thanks for the question. I mean, I don't remember off the top of my head, it was a couple years ago, but I think it was around, I want to say 4 hours a week, in 4 to 6 hours a week, maybe in addition to the classes, right? I'm trying to think of the first semester, which I think I committed the most time to just to get into the use of it. And, there'd be a weekly accounting assignment that took some studying to do, plus doing the actual assignment. So I want to say maybe 4 to 6 hours for the first couple of weeks. I spent a lot more time, I'd say, in preparation for exams. You have that 2-week break. I believe it was a 2-week break between your last class and your exam. It's kind of a good time to review all the past assignments. And, personally, I would read every section of the textbook for whatever class it was. to just, see that there's often things that might not be covered in depth in class that might show up on the exam. So taking the time to really run through all the chapters that are listed and the associated material and previous assignments, I'd say that took a little more time in preparation for the exam, but not too bad for the the weekly kind of assignments.
Good to know. Laura, any comments on kind of that balance piece that you want to jump in with?
Yeah, I do want to comment on this one. So we had colleagues who came in just had their third baby, or were pregnant halfway through the program, or had a baby during the program. So, I mean, life is happening, right? You can not really plan, yet you can still sort of plan. And then I didn't really find it super struggling, because back then I didn't really have a lot of like family commitment, and then my company supported me quite a bit, and I was on very flexible hours, so I could manage my time properly. It is important though to get the support. So if you want to get into this program, definitely you should get you should get into a agreement with your employers, that's for sure. And then I think other than that, I agree with the Matthew. It's definitely 4 to 6 hours on top of the class time, and it also depends on the subject, right? Like for some subjects, like for finance, like we have financial controller or CFOs on our class, and then they found accounting classes like extremely simple, while some people should probably find it super hard. They need tutors for that. And then like for me, I personally found the marketing was very, very basic. But a lot of people found the marketing cases are extremely hard to understand. So it also depends on your background and the subject. But yeah, the ballpark is pretty much what Matthew said.
Great point, Flora, in terms of kind of what your strengths are and what you bring to that, and how that might change throughout kind of when different courses are being offered, whether that will be a more challenging period or section versus others. So yeah, a lot of those backgrounds. David, feel free if you have anything to comment on this balance and number of hours piece, but if not, we can move on. There's plenty of questions coming in, which is wonderful to see.
Yeah, for sure. Just maybe a quick comment and to kind of give you a bit of a kind of personal story here is that I started a new role within the area that I wanted to go into, which is product management, 5 months after I started the program. And I was the first product manager on that team, building a product from the ground up, while in my kind of first 6 months of the professional MBA program. And you can just imagine how difficult and hard it is to balance. Like there's no other way to kind of say it's not easy balancing between the two, and you have to make some priorities. But looking back, I think what I mostly learned from that experience of just balancing work and life and school is that you become really, really good at optimization and time management. And which will that in a later stage of your career, as you're moving to a much more senior role and more work is on your plate, you're able to manage them more efficiently, and you're able also to focus on what's important. What exactly will kind of help you to kind of drive the needle, whether it's your professional work or life, versus things that are just creating noise for you. And I think that's also one of the benefits of doing a professional MBA, at least in my opinion, versus a full-time MBA.
Thank you so much. And I'm going to go over to Pari. You've been waiting patiently with your virtual hand raised if you'd like to ask your question and unmute.
For sure. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for your time. It's been super insightful thus far. My question is to everyone here with regards to the global opportunities. So I'm curious to know, it was during the pandemic, the second year. So what sort of global opportunities did you take advantage of? I'm assuming the Global Network Week might not have been available, but if you folks did courses, and more specifically, how did those translate into benefits that you could apply at your work? Thanks.
Thank you so much, Pari. And I'm going to add on to your question because it's a great one and it was one of mine as well for them. Is also if, while you're speaking, panelists, if you could speak to if you got involved with anything outside of kind of the standard, so things like GNAM, things like international opportunities, or even if you engage with any kind of community activities or groups. I know there was a question in the chat around kind of university organizations and student life and things like that. Again, pandemic may have affected your participation, but if you could speak to either yours or your classmates' experience with those kind of things, that'd be wonderful. Feel free, whoever'd like to start.
I think I was the only one among the three of us who actually went for a GNAM, so I will start. How the GNAM first and foremost, we were all very excited about the GNAM opportunities, but yes, pandemic happened. So for how did it work? The GNAM opportunities will be released, and then with a certain head count, and everybody can sign up for option 1, 2, 3, and then you will get assigned to the ones you're interested, but might not be the primary one, but you will get assigned to one of them. So I was interested in Yale, and then I think the Japanese university back then, and then the third one was the Costa Rica INSEAD. And then back then the pandemic started, but in Costa Rica it wasn't that bad, so the 6 of us actually went to Costa Rica and studied for a week in INSEAD business school. And then I knew one of my colleagues, he actually applied at the end of the first year for an opportunity in Shanghai. So he actually got in as well. So I think it depends on how you really want to work on your global opportunities, and then definitely talk to your like students managers and then find the best way. But for us, I would say the experience in Costa Rica was very helpful. So we probably would travel to Costa Rica for a vacation, but never really going to have the opportunity to study or live a little bit in a different country like that. And then the business cases they are studying, the business environment they were introducing were very different from what we have in Canada, and definitely it's very eye-opening. And then I consider myself a very like I traveled a lot of places, but again Central America is very different from here, and then very different from China. And then I learned concepts and real situations from that experience, which I found it's very inspiring. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing, Flora, and I'm so glad you had that opportunity to do that trip, despite the pandemic and kind of the different pieces that were ongoing. Yeah, and over to David or Matthew, whether it's an international piece or if you kind of were involved in any kind of student organizations. Just curious to know if you have any commentary on those pieces.
Yeah, I took the GNAM as well, and I was actually designed to go to Yale for about a week, and COVID hit and Sky was closed, so I had to do a virtual study session, and overall the experience again was not as expected. I mean, there's definitely a difference between doing online versus face-to-face, but still I managed to network and meet a few super interesting people where we surprisingly keep in touch until today. One of them is a director at Pepsi, managing sustainability. He's doing awesome work, and we're catching up like once a quarter on just casual conversation, and that has been great. And just from 1 week of introduction and working together on a few cases. So a great experience. I highly recommend it. And if you get a chance to do it a few times, then definitely go for it.
This one, or we can move on to a few more of the questions coming in. Okay, perfect. We did have a question, I thought it was a really great one too, around why UBC Sauder. So if you're able to comment, any of our panelists, on if there were other programs you were considering, other opportunities, and maybe what led you to select UBC Sauder, and maybe particularly the PMBA program as the choice for you.
Yeah, happy to take this one off the bat. For myself, it was a bit of a last minute decision. You know, I had always wanted to do an MBA, but I actually wasn't. I was thinking of doing it in that upcoming year, but I had just figured out like all the timing around everything, the scheduling when the semester starts, and it kind of happened a lot faster than I thought it would. At that time, though, you know, I was considering applying to different schools, doing the GRE or GMAT, kind of seeing where I landed. The caveat being is, you know, I thought UBC was a great school to begin with, and I kind of wanted to stay in Vancouver and do it part-time to continue, you know, that career growth and lifestyle. I had just moved to Vancouver probably 4 years prior to starting the MBA. So kind of didn't want to give that up at that point, and had a really good option right in our backyard in a part-time program that's a little more rare to find. And so that's ultimately how I made the decision. You know, when you're making those decisions, there's also like not just other MBA programs to think about, but kind of other educational programs that might propel your career, you know, whether that's at the time I was thinking of doing a CFA potentially, or a master's in real estate. So, you know, it's not necessarily just about MBA schools, and more about kind of what's the education that you need, or that you feel like you need in your life to get to where you want to be.
Absolutely, that's a great point, and I've heard that from folks considering an MBA at certain points too, is what kind of professional designations might they be looking for, and what kind of career trajectory are they on, and how will it shape? So making sure it's the right fit for this time in your career and your career goals is a great point. David, Flora, any comments on kind of why you chose the program, why you chose UBC Sauder?
Sure. Like I said, as I wanted to stay here because of my job, my career, and then UBC Sauder is the best in Canada, and then the US ones are too expensive, and I don't want to go to US. So, and then I think the destination part is also quite important, because unless you're doing it on a leisure time, I think a study you want to have some outcome, and then the destination piece is super important. And then I remember clearly that I asked my admission advisor about the destination. I said, "Oh, is this PMBA the same like the executive MBA that is a short type of, you know, like thing?" And then she said, no, it's actually the full, like it's the full destination program. So.
Maybe I could just add kind of my 2 cents on this one. Basically, UBC for me was, I did want to stay in Vancouver, and my work was here, but I was also flexible in moving to the TELUS office in Toronto if needed. However, I did choose UBC because it's a great school with a great program. My partner did the full-time MBA a few years before me, so I get a really close look into what that would look like and what the value of UBC is. And I wouldn't change my pick. So in Canada, I would definitely kind of stick with UBC, and no doubt about that.
And really interesting, David. I've heard of a few of these pairings of partners who have gone and done one, either the full-time or the PMBA, and or done it at the same time. So very interesting to hear that's part of your story too. Fantastic. We're getting towards kind of closing out a little bit. We'll still have time for a few more questions. So if you've got any other burning questions, I see some coming through the chat. We'll try our best to get to them. Why don't we move to Adrian's question here, in terms of what aspect of the MBA experience do you believe had the most significant impact on your professional growth? And I won't kind of plant any seeds here, but I'd be curious to hear as well if you have any commentary on working with the career coaches at UBC Sauder, or if you kind of had any professors that were kind of particularly stand out for you, or any kind of networking opportunities that were really impactful. So yeah, really curious to hear what kind of had the most impact on your professional growth as during your time as a PMBA student. So I'll open it up. Whoever's feeling like they want to go first, please feel free.
Happy to go first. I'd say for me, I think it would depend a little on your background and education and where you want to get to as well. But for me personally, I'd say what helped the most were the finance, strategy, and operations classes. Definitely, I mean, I definitely wouldn't be where I am today without the MBA in general, but I think those three specifically kind of brought my just business acumen and financial acumen to the next level. I actually switched jobs during my MBA. I think it was during the second year, from the development team to the corporate strategy team, and I'm like fairly certain that wouldn't have happened without having done this at the same time. And I'd say those are probably the three aspects of it that allowed me to grow into that role. Yeah.
Maybe I'll kind of jump in and so for me, although I have a business background, I did value a lot from the courses I took with Darren Dahl, especially during the residency week, where I learned a lot about strategy and look at it from a kind of bird view level, and how to work in an environment with multiple stakeholders and driving the strategy of an organization. And I think that's was one of the key that helped me land a role within product management as I wanted to. All classes with Tim Silk was phenomenal. And I can say that I learned a lot also through the negotiation courses in residency. I believe it was 3. Which still some of the tactics I'm still using today.
Okay, so for me, I think definitely the design of the program is very helpful. I had over 15 years of a working experience before I joined the program. I had a lot of field experience, but going through the program actually helps me to systematically review what I know and then what I don't know, and then it helps me to improve my comprehensive understanding of business. That is, it is very impactful on my professional growth. It's also like I had a lot of entrepreneurial experience as well, but with a systematic understanding of business aspects, I actually can provide bigger value. Even for now, like my business consulting business is part of the outcome. Another thing is like what Nicole mentioned is the Career Development Center. So I personally found the career coaches extremely helpful. They are very accessible, and then they are always available for you during the program. As far as I understand, you still have another 2 years of access to the career center after graduated, and then and I think a lifelong career center, like online access. I'm not quite sure about all the rules, but my personal career coach Wendy has been super helpful, and then the service they provide is very, again, systematic and then professional. So I think those are the important aspects from this program.
Well, I'm so glad to hear that. And just a quick comment on the kind of career support services. I think what's really nice to know too is our career coaches acknowledge that someone who's kind of mid-career and kind of wanting to do an MBA or even a PMBA, kind of it's different types of career support that's needed than someone who's early career. And so being able to be flexible and adaptive and acknowledge that and kind of enter into the conversation where is needed is I think a really big asset that they bring to that support as well. I'm going to ask all of our alumni to just stay on the call because we're getting near the end of our session. And so I'm going to share my screen again. I'll give a quick thank you so much for sharing. It was really, really wonderful to hear all your perspectives. I have a few reminders I'd like to share with everyone on the call, and I wonder if even our alumni panelists might have some memories or want to reflect on any kind of pieces in terms of tips and tricks around admission, or anything that they kind of would advise someone who's considering applying to our program. But let me go over a few of these pieces here before I turn it over. So our admission requirements, as you can see, we're looking for academic achievement through things like your GPA or a GMAT or GRE score, or both as needed. We're also looking for postgrad work experience, at least 2 years, and a minimum of 2 professional references. And then through an application, you'll be asked to submit a written piece as well as a video essay, and that will help us to get to know you better. Sauder, and an English proficiency test if applicable, particularly if your degree was not taught in English. That would be an important part, but let us know if you have questions. We can always do some one-on-one conversation about what's applicable to you. And then a personal interview is also part of the application if you're invited to that stage or that round of the application. I will note too, I've been alluding to this, but we're really looking forward to our first round application deadline. So that's a really important one because, as you can see here, it's tied to our early entrance scholarship, which I'll kind of get into more details in a moment. But submitting a complete application by April 16th would kind of allow for eligibility towards that early entrance scholarship. It also gives you a nice chance very early on in our recruitment cycle to be considered for the program, which is kind of a really nice advantage as well. You can see here with the scholarships, I mentioned the early entrance, so we would need to see an application submitted in full by April 16th in order to be kind of considered and that early entrance scholarship to be designated. But you can see also there's a number of other scholarships that we have through the PMBA program, and these are all automatic considerations, so you wouldn't need to submit, for example, a separate essay or things like that. When we're looking at, when the admissions committee is evaluating your application, they will be assessing for whether you would be given an entrance scholarship related to one of these areas. I will mention too, we have some really wonderful upcoming events, particularly on April 23rd, if you happen to be in the Lower Mainland kind of Vancouver area. We have an MBA and a PMBA happy hour recruitment event, so that will be a chance to meet some alumni as well as some current students and some of our staff, as well as others who are considering or interested in these programs. So please take a look at your email for an invitation to that. We also have another virtual event coming up on May 2nd with some of our current students. I know there was a few questions unfortunately we didn't get to today, but that might be a great chance to kind of ask some of our current students about their experiences. They haven't kind of been through a pandemic stage, so they might have some different reflections to share with you all in terms of what they've experienced in the PMBA program so far. And then finally, take a look longer term towards July, when we'll have one of our career coaches joining us for a career outcome session to talk about the PMBA program from their perspective. So that will be really wonderful as well. So quick passing over to our, I'm going to stop sharing, passing over one more time to our alumni for any kind of closing words, tips and tricks, if you have any advice in terms of someone who's getting ready to submit their application, and yeah, just any kind of rounding out words from our panelists. So whoever would like to jump in and start, please feel free.
Yeah, so I personally, I think PMBA kicks in when you have 5 to 7 years into your career, and then or you're looking for a transition, because it's definitely the most successful way. Like Matthew transitioned from his engineering background to more strategy and business background, and I know alumni who transitioned from engineering to consultancy. So I think that is something you can consider. And then again, it's very important to get support from your family, from your employer.
And I think particularly with that balance and getting support from those around you for what's a balancing act, but a really important kind of undertaking for many folks. Wonderful. Maybe Matthew, I see you're unmuted. Over to you for final words or any tips and advice for those on the call.
Yeah, no, thanks, Nicole. I'd say, and kind of what I said previously, is like I'd give it, I mean, it's obviously a big financial cost and time commitment. So I'd really think about kind of, where you are at today versus where you want to be and what's going to put you in the best position to get there. But at the same time, things change, right? Like when I started the program, I would have not expected to be in this position currently. So, there's a lot of benefit to going through it and, seeing where life takes you. So I'd say, just as a closing remark, it's good to have a basis and, understand what you want, but, things change over time, and there's definitely benefit to going with the flow, and new opportunities will definitely arise throughout the program or after the program. That might be different than what you originally thought, but it's all been a positive experience for myself.
Yeah, just maybe quickly add to that. As Matthew mentioned, it is a time commitment and a financial commitment. So really do your due diligence and make sure you do the right decision before, accepting the program. And if you already decided that that's what you want to do and for the right reasons, then make sure to tell your story in the application, who you are, what you've done. I think at least for me, it made a difference on sharing, my career growth, where I want to go, why, and any activities you're doing outside of work, such as volunteering, can also play a key role, at least from my knowledge in admission.
So that's a great point, David, and that kind of community engagement, community involvement, those are all really wonderful things to highlight. So to my last point here that I just put in the chat, we will close up. We're kind of just over time here. But if you have any other questions as you're kind of getting ready, thank you so much to my colleagues for putting that in. You can reach out to us if you'd like some support or advice around putting together your application. We're kind of here to walk you through. So we're very ready and willing. And I really just want to say one more time, a really big thank you to David, Matthew, and Flora. It was really wonderful hearing your insights, and I can see a lot of appreciation coming through from the chat as well. So thank you again for your time. Yeah. So that's all from me. I don't know, Tina, you've been kind of doing chat monitoring. If you have any other comments that you want to jump in, if there's any unanswered questions, those of you who have to go, feel free to log off. I'll be sticking around for another 3 to 5 minutes to see if there's any last questions that we can get through from a kind of admissions and recruitment perspective. But once again, thank you so much again for your time, and I hope everyone has a wonderful afternoon or whatever time of day it may be for them, but I think most of us are kind of getting into the latter part of our day.